Welcome back to the Heal with Gold show. And I missed you guys last week. I was in New York. So I appreciate you guys giving me that week off. It was fabulous. I accomplished so much in such a short period of time. It was good to feel super productive, even though physically I wasn't feeling well for so long. So it was great for me to see that I could still do a lot. As you guys come in, I'm going to ask you to please say hello, write your names. If you didn't approve StreamYard, I'm not going to see your name. So this time I have such a treat for you guys. I'm going to introduce you to Sarah as soon as she comes in. But I wanted to remind everybody that we're doing the 10 golden nuggets to heal mind and soul, focusing on the Heal with Gold book, right? Remember that each chapter was one trick, one tip for healing your mind and soul and for feeling more joyful. Again, we're doing this 10 series in memory of Miriam Amsalem, who passed away too soon of an aneurysm very suddenly. She was the person who was helping me get better physically. Hi, Marina. So nice to see you. And she passed away, and I feel terrible that I didn't give her an update that I was feeling better. And thanks to her, I had started that personal physical healing journey. And so I decided to do this 10 series in her memory. Share the show, share with everybody. Everything that we do here is just to help. It's just to spread love and kindness and create friendships and tell everybody to join the Heal with Gold show, where we have those conversations, where the show lives. Hi, Gina. Love self-care. We're going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about self-kindness. And right now, without further ado, I bring to the stage Sarah Ramsey. How are you, Sarah? I'm so happy to have you here on my show because you're an expert problem solver and relationship coach. And I couldn't have found the most perfect match for this topic because when we talk about self-care and self-kindness, it's all about how we see ourselves in our relationship with ourselves, how we show up to the world, right? How we present ourselves. But it all starts with how we take care of ourselves. So first of all, you're being welcomed to the group. So I just wanted to share that. And so I want you to first start by telling people a little bit more about you, about your books, your company, what you do as a professional. You work in the corporate world, you work with regular people, but I want them to understand why I thought that you were such a perfect match for this specific topic. And it was super important for me to find the right people for the right chapters, people that this is what they do. And I want to kind of break this myth that self-care is mani-pedis, a massage, maybe shopping a little bit. All of that is great. There is room for all of that, but it goes so much deeper than that. And so please, Sarah, introduce a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, before I'll address the self-care thing really quick before I tell too much about myself, because I had a client and she said there's a difference between self-care and self-maintenance. And I love getting my nails done. Every time I look at my hands, I think, oh, I take care of myself, right? But personally, in my own life, I had to set some really strong boundaries in the last week with family members I never thought I was going to have to set those types of boundaries with, right? That's self-care too, right? It's not just my nails being painted, even though that makes me happy. That's kind of self-maintenance. And self-care is, am I creating the life I want? Am I investing in the relationships that I want? What's my future look like? And I was featured in today.com, and I'm so glad they picked this one quote. And I have this philosophy, and it says, from birth to death, you're always stuck with you. right?
Isn't that so true? You know, we are with ourselves all day long. It's time that we fall in love with ourselves,
Mhm,
isn't it? I
mhm.
mean, we so easily fall in love with new friends and new relationships and with our kids. There, it's all temporary, right? We're with them a short period of the grand scheme of life,
Mhm.
but we wake up and go to sleep, and the whole day we are with ourselves.
Yes, and today quoted me as, um, you are the one constant in your own life.
Yeah.
That's it. Everything else changes, but you're always stuck with you, right? And I was like, oh, I'm just so glad that's the quote they went with, And so I used to be the world's biggest people pleaser. And to make a decision or to solve a problem or to move forward, I mentally had like these permission slips. And so I would take them to other people. Will you sign off on this decision? What job do you think I should do? How do you think I should cut my hair? Do you think I'm ready to have kids? How do you think I should parent? Whatever it was, right? And I just mentally had these permission slips. And so the way I made a decision was seeking out other people's approval, which was not self love at all, right? It was allowing these controlling relationships in my life. And then I decided to get a divorce. Okay. So it was from a very religious background, and both my dad and my ex husband's family worked together in this church setting.
Wow.
So, divorce is always a very tricky decision. This was it was a lot of
Very
weight.
tricky.
Right. And so because it was so scary, I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and which is also not self-love. And finally, the stress of the indecision just racked my body. I mean, just wrecked it. My hair was falling out. I couldn't digest my food, and I blacked out while driving. And I was completely sober, no prescription drugs, no alcohol. It was 2 p.m, and just stopped holding the wheel. And my best friend from college was actually with me. I was not in college, but we were on a girls' weekend after seeing each other, our 10-year college anniversary, I guess. And she grabbed the wheel and she said, "What happened to you? What happened to you?" And this was an intersection in the middle of Charlotte, North Carolina, like downtown. There were other cars, there was a stoplight, there were people crossing on the sidewalk. I mean, I could have hit some. I mean, the chances of me hitting, the fact that I didn't hit someone is just really amazing, that the car was supposed to turn left and then didn't, right? And that was my rock bottom. That was all the wake up call I needed to start to really make a decision, not have everyone sign off on my permission slip before I could make a decision. And that was the biggest act of self-love that I had to face. And it was terribly scary because I knew I was going to disappoint so many people. The divorce ended up being every bit as bad as I thought it was going to be. Hundreds of people left the church. 4 staff members left the church. They told everyone that the Spirit of God had left my father. Quite honestly, there's still fallout 7 or 8 years later from it. It was just terrible, Still worth it. Still a great decision. Still an act of self-love. But it wasn't a manicure. It wasn't a spa treatment. It was saying, I know you're going to be disappointed with me because you don't believe in divorce, but I have got to do this for me and my children. And,
I think that this is such an incredible story and example, because I think that every single one of us are faced with some major decision, and like we get into a place where we have to make a decision. Are we going to take care of ourselves? Are we going to put ourselves first in this situation and take care and really apply this self-kindness? Or are we going to continue and then derail completely our lives? And I think that in reality, we get many opportunities throughout our lives until we are left with this major decision. I also felt that what I was doing to my health, and I mentioned just before I brought you in, that this event, we're doing the 10 golden nuggets in memory of Miriam Amsalem. And my husband had 2 strokes, and I sold my house, and we moved 3 times in 6 months, and I was a mess. But I'm one of this, like, I'm everybody's caretaker, and I'm the fixer. We talked a little bit about before coming to the show that we're probably going to be friends, because if you were a master problem solver,
Yes.
I'm a problem solver in my life, in my family lives. Everybody comes to me to solve the problems, and I do it well. But along the way, we get those messages that we need to stop and take care of ourselves also, and not only other people. And I didn't pay attention, and I knew I was not just gaining the weight, but I was really not eating well, and it was unhealthy. I'm not talking about weight gain for size. I'm talking about weight gain for health. Until in the last move that I had to do, I couldn't pack and unpack. I felt completely broken. My blood pressure was so high. That's when I talked to my friend Miriam. We shared a name, and she told me to meet somebody. That person introduced me to a functional medicine doctor. But it was like, okay, am I worth the time every 3 months to go an hour away and sit with this doctor for 3-4 hours? Am I worth, to prepare? I even have it on my desk. Prepare all the medications and take them as I'm supposed to. Even spend the money, because I never spend money on myself. It's always on other people. So I think that we come across so many opportunities to show up for ourselves, and then we need this smack in the heads, like, you almost passed out in the car while driving. I almost passed out in my house. I mean, things happen in our lives that simply tells us, okay, hold on a second, you're not putting yourself first, you're not putting that mask first. How are you going to take care of the people that you're supposed to take care of?
And I had to do some real mental gymnastics to get past that. Within the conservative Christian culture I was raised in, it was very much like, there was a phrase that said, Jesus, others, yourself. So like joy. If you want to have joy, Jesus, others, yourself. That was my childhood, what I was.
How you were raised.
So you can imagine that it was like, okay, should I get a divorce and blow up the church? Well, that was a pretty tough decision considering my framework and my background.
So Sarah, I'm very curious.
Yeah.
So that moment happened. Your friend was there to save you in the car, and you realized that that's it. You need to take care of yourself. What then? Because I think that moment is a very critical moment. And I think that the people who are here live and who are going to listen afterwards, they're going to start taking a mental note about their lives, either some stuff that they're going through right now, stuff that they went through in the past, or keep this in mind for their future selves, right? Okay, so we get the message. We get the message that now it's time for us to put ourselves first. But how, if we haven't done it in so long? Mm-hmm. You were raised, like you said, first Jesus, then the church. How do you say, okay, now it's my turn?
So I am really big on leading by example, right? And so one of the things that I joke around with, and a woman will say, for example, like, okay, my child needs to rest. My child needs to have time with friends. My child needs to socialize. It's like, okay, so when does your child expire? And they go, what? And I said, well, I have a daughter. So if it's appropriate for my daughter to get rest and exercise and spend time with friends, and it's not appropriate for me to, at some point she expires. So I just need to warn her, hey, by the time you're 25, your life's over and your needs never count again. And you would never say that to a child because it's so terrible, but it kind of flips it in your head. You're like, ooh, that's what I've been saying to myself. Like, I'm expired. Right. Or I'll say to people,
that's very strong. That's very,
I had to work really hard on this.
That is very strong.
This is the school of hard knocks. I mean, it nearly killed me. So, and then, other women will say, I'm great at giving advice. I just don't take my own advice. And I say, okay, well, I've been talking about toxic relationships for the last 5 years. If you came to my house and saw my husband scream at me and throw something at me, would it change your perspective of me? And they said, yes. And I said, well, why? I'm great at giving you advice about your relationships and your boundaries. I don't have to take my own advice. And they're like, oh, that doesn't seem very honest. And I said, I don't think it's honest to give advice that you're not willing to take. I think that's very dishonest, right?
Mhm.
And because I want to be honest and I want to be good and I want to be a good person, those things really helped switch it over for me, like putting myself first, even that language. I was trained so deeply that was not what I was supposed to do, right? And so really having these like weird mental tricks of like, oh, I don't want to be a liar. I can't tell people to do something and then, tell people to rest or take a day off or have a nap or sleep in and then not be willing to do it myself. I can't do that, right? Because I don't want to be dishonest. And that was a lot more motivating to me than
Okay, but so most people are not coaches and they are not giving people advice, right? We need to help them figure out when do they come first, right? Because I'm currently coaching, but it's recent. I wasn't coaching before. And it's very interesting because one of my coaching clients, I introduced her to my functional medicine doctor, and she got all of the supplements. So the next time she came, I showed her how I keep my supplements because I knew that she was going to get the same supplements. And I wanted to give her a tip and show her how I was doing. Maybe she would adopt a similar way. But 2 years ago, I wasn't coaching. And I wasn't really giving people advice. I was just living my life. And I was not putting myself first. And it's very interesting because till today, the concept of putting myself first doesn't sound great, right? Those words, I have to put myself first. We're told so often that we are nurturers, we are caregivers, we are here to give others, that this whole concept of giving to ourselves first sounds a little, maybe, I don't know, I don't have to say like we're not the center of the world, but we're almost like we should behave like we are the center. But it's really not that. It's not about being the focus. It's not about being the center. It's not about attention. It's about the type of care that we need to give ourselves to first demand of others that same kind of respect, right? And also to have the strength to be able to be the good nurturers, caregivers, professionals, entrepreneurs, whatever we are. But we need that love and that compassion. And one thing that I wrote in the book, and I mentioned to you a little bit before, is that the way we talk to ourselves, we don't talk to our worst enemies. We never tell people you're disgusting, like you have no self-control. We don't say that to other people. You have no tenacity. You are not resourceful. We don't talk like that to other people, but we have absolutely no problem talking to ourselves like that. And that toxicity compounds itself more and more and more. And then how can we be nurturers if we have nothing to give because we emptied out what we were supposed to give ourselves? Also, we can't live a life of expecting other people to fill our buckets. We first need to fill our buckets to have something in there to be able to give, right? Because you don't give out of nothing. So what do you have to say about all of this rambling?
I have a friend and she struggles to exercise, and you're talking about, health and that kind of thing. Not that it's about image or anything else, but her husband had lost like 100 pounds, and she struggles to exercise, and she would say, oh, you always exercise. Like, how do you always exercise? And I started thinking about it, and I said, well, my uncle ran the Boston Marathon. My other uncle's a bodybuilder. My other uncle exercises all the time. My dad still plays competitive tennis at 40. My mom always walks. To me and my family, it was such a culture. It's a cultural norm to exercise. And I just, just like goldfish swim in their own water, I never thought about the water I was in. But then my friend said, oh, I never saw my parents exercise. So who's it going to be easier to exercise, me or her?
For sure.
Right? And so I said, I don't think about whether or not I'm going to exercise, because that's just like you eat, sometimes I don't exercise that diligently, but it's just a pretty normal part of my culture. My family modeled that very well. And so I think about the same thing, being that cycle breaker for your kids, and, thinking, okay, kids are smart. If I am saying, we'll go with food again and say, oh, mommy's bad, I had a cake. Oh, I'm bad that I had ice cream today. I can't eat that, it's bad. Or, oh, mommy's too fat to eat that. If I say things like that, whether out loud or even in my head, our kids are going to pick up on it. Right? And I'll also tell you a story. We were at baseball, and it was Mother's Day weekend. And I was furious because my son's baseball team had scheduled a tournament for Mother's Day weekend. Okay. And so I was at the ball field until 10:30 the day before Mother's Day. So I was supposed to have the next day my mother over, I was hosting the family, much less it's my Mother's Day, right? And I remember this, and I was kind of like asking around at some of the other moms, and I said, hey, is anyone else concerned that it's Mother's Day weekend, or we're here till, I think it was 11 o'clock that night? And this one mother said, well, I don't mind at all. My life isn't about me. My life is about my son. And so I'm happy to be at the ball field. And Mother's Day doesn't even have to be special. It can just be just another day. And I thought, thank God. I sure hope my daughter does not marry your son. Right?
I get what you're saying.
You don't think about it. I mean, the culture supports her, right? Our culture says, oh, you're a martyr mother. Oh, this is so wonderful. How dare you think about yourself? And as I was just kind of thinking, if I want to teach my son to respect Mother's Day, and I want to teach my daughter to respect Mother's Day, and that she deserves Mother's Day at some point. And at some point, I want my husband to be nice to his wife for Mother's Day and respect all that. And I'm at the ball field till 11. Something's wrong. It feels like something's wrong in this process. And sometimes it just takes that one extra step to say, does this really make sense? Is this really the legacy I want to leave my kids? If my kids repeat these patterns, am I okay with it? If I see my daughter end up exactly like me, or my son end up exactly like me, or be with someone exactly, am I okay with that? And I think about thinking of it as a child, and maybe there's a niece or nephew or a student at school, or just anyone that you picture the potential in this child. And then you think, am I modeling them that their potential continues to grow, and their needs count, and their rest counts, and their voice counts, and their opinion counts, and their, life counts? Or am I teaching them that they're going to expire? And at some point, your only role is nurture. I don't want to do that to my kid. And I remember one day my daughter said, why are you going to exercise? And I said, I'm going to exercise because I want you to feel like it's normal to exercise one day. Because she was kind of guilting me about going to the gym, because I'm divorced, right? I don't have my kids all the time. And it was before that situation, it was very easy to only save my stuff for the days I didn't have the kids. And so the days I had the kids, it was all about them. And I thought that was the right thing to do until I had that conversation with my friend about the exercise. And I was like, oh, that's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is model the life I hope they live, and model good, healthy habits for them, and healthy boundaries and healthy self-talk, and, and just genuine care for yourself and kindness for yourself.
That is such a good tip to use this. Who do I want them to see? What do they want? I want them to know that I appreciate who I am, my faults, my qualities, everything. I want to get better, in the things that I'm weaker, but I respect that part of myself, just because I want them to also respect their weaknesses and their who they are, because we are here to learn. So it's okay if we fail at certain things, right? It's part of the journey, but I can respect myself and be kind to myself. So I want you to give us some tips on how to reframe some things that we say to ourselves.
Yes, there is an example.
Because we want to say something, right? We want to criticize ourselves, but how can we spin it from something so derogatory and mean and ugly and really unacceptable to something positive, growth oriented?
I gave the toxic voice in my head a very specific job. Okay. Because what I often found was, if you think that toxic voice in your head is going to make sure you're on time and make sure you're doing the laundry and make sure, there's this like relationship with the toxic voice, like, oh, it's kind of keeping me together. Right. And so just letting go of that toxic voice completely can feel really scary or just really far away for people. So I personally, my clients have had a lot of success with giving that toxic voice a new job. Okay. So I save that toxic voice in my head for a very specific purpose, which is, hey, Sarah, if it's not working, try something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And because I was so hurt by religion and the church split and all that kind of stuff, I'm really, 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 really careful to not hurt people with like, well, this is the truth, Mary. Like this is the truth. You need to listen to me. And this is the truth, right? Because it was damaging to me,
Yeah. And there is no one truth.
Well, but if it's not working, try something else. Felt like as close to the truth as I could get, right? And so that felt like, okay, that's always good advice. Like, there's not a whole lot of stuff that's always good advice.
Right.
And it was like, okay, if it's not working, stop doing it. Or if it's not working, try something else. Always felt like the truth, right? It felt like the truth. I felt like I could stay solid with that. Mm-hmm. And so if I direct my toxic voice to that job,
So let's show some examples, because my mind is already spinning and showing me examples. Because, for example, it's very interesting, because my functional medicine doctor wants me to go on a keto diet. Mm-hmm. And I panicked because I started looking at recipes online, and I don't mix dairy with meat. I don't even have a lot of dairy because I have asthma, so I stay away from dairy. And all the recipes that look amazing are like a lot of cheese with some salami or some chicken and this, and I don't eat like that. Mm-hmm. So every recipe that I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, I can't eat that, and I can't eat that. And I became completely paralyzed, and I haven't started the diet. And we're talking about the keto diet. I just want to explain that it's not for the purpose of losing weight for looks. It is 100% for my health, as part of my healing of everything that I'm going through. And I'm very careful with that, because I am bigger. I'm a bigger person, and I am very careful. I want people to understand that not every big person is unhealthy, as not every thin person is healthy. It doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. So I want people to be very careful. Whoever wants to lose weight for looks, they're welcome. It's a choice that they're entitled to make, and they can search for any answers. I'm right now in a search for my physical well-being, because I'm not feeling well. My blood pressure is high. My cholesterol is high. So I'm in search for my a physical healing. So I just wanted to clarify that. but I became paralyzed. And every morning and every day that I end up eating something that's not keto, and I'm frustrated with myself. I'm saying because I'm a very determined person, so it doesn't make sense. And I am a problem solver, so it doesn't make sense. There is something there that's keeping me from really immersing myself into this part of my journey, and I need to clear and figuring out. So when you're saying, I love, because immediately I started, taking, okay, I like this advice, how can I put that in my life? And I'm like, well, if it's not working, maybe you do something else. So I need, is that how you would put in context?
Absolutely. And just neuroscience is so fascinating, like practical neuroscience. When you start to discover that our brains are designed to keep us safe, not make us happy, right? Like our brains are designed to keep us alive. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you see a beautiful, tropical paradise and you see gorgeous water and you see plants and fruits and palm trees and sunshines and birds, and it's just this beautiful thing. And then you see a crocodile. What is your brain going to pay attention
To the crocodile.
right? So that you don't die,
Right.
right? So no matter how many great things are going on in your life or how many times you did eat healthy, right? In my new book, Problem Solved, Simple Habits for Complex Decisions, Cornell University says we make 219 decisions about food alone each day. 219 food decisions a day, right? And you think it, I actually hired my first nutrition coach when I was writing this book, because writing a book is really bad for your health. Like we don't think about that, but then you kind of say it out loud. It's like you sit all the time, you can't move, you're just, it's not good for your health, right? So I hired a nutrition coach during this process. And there's that whole idea that our brains are designed to keep us alive, so that the fat and the sugar and the carbs, I mean, that in our ancient brains, right, kept us alive, because there were not processed foods, there weren't cookies, there weren't, my favorite is ice cream. There wasn't ice cream and pies. And when you start to learn some of these weird things about how our brain works and really think about, okay, my brain's a survival mechanism. My brain's always stuck in survival, right? Okay, we make 219 food decisions a day. I got one wrong. I got 218 right. I got one wrong. Am I really going to beat myself up over that one crocodile when there's birds and beautiful water and beautiful palm trees, but we just have to do it on purpose, because our brains are not going to do it for us. Mm-hmm. Because our brains trained to see the crocodile, right? Mm-hmm. Our brains are also designed to be afraid of what does change rather than what happens if we don't change. Okay.
Interesting. So explain, give me an example of that.
Okay. So, it's I'm afraid that if I leave the relationship, right, then my kids will hate me and I'll be homeless and I won't have a house to live in and I'll have to change jobs and everyone will be mad at me. But
the worst case scenarios.
Yeah. And you might be in a terrible situation. It's like, but if I don't leave, in my situation, my body's shutting down. Mm-hmm. I was in my early 30s and my body had shut down to that capacity. It was not going to get better, right? I didn't care if I was alive. Christmas morning, I was laid in bed all day because I was so depressed. I didn't ever look my children really in the face because I was so sad. Like I had to train my brain to be afraid of what happens if that doesn't change. Mm-hmm. Not just be afraid of, oh, I'm going to have to find a new job and I'm going to have to leave my house. And, I'm not going to have any child support, which I didn't. And, my kids are young and what if they hate me? And, because it's easy to be afraid. If I change, these scary things could happen. Mm-hmm. We want to give that toxic voice a better job. We want to give that a voice a better job. Say, okay, if it's not working, you need to try something else. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in your scenario, maybe the keto is not for you. I'm switching topics a little bit. I'm certainly not a nutrition coach, but there might be another diet. I've personally had to learn how to eat for my body versus what.
No, I think that is so right, because I think that when something is not working, and I was thinking about it, I was thinking there must be a reason why I'm not starting,
Mhm.
because I am a determined person and I do make things happen. So something is not matching up. Something inside of me is not allowing me to start this process. And maybe it is the right diet, but maybe not the right time for it. Maybe I need to start some other way and then ease into that. I don't know. But I 100%, I didn't beat myself up for not doing. I just didn't understand because it's so not my character. But it's so easy for us to hurt ourselves and say nasty things to ourselves. Um, and that's so sad. I mean, that is so sad. I'm a long time ago, I made the decision that I'm never going to wait for anybody to provide for me. I'm going to be a provider, and I'm never going to wait for anybody to compliment me. I'm going to compliment myself. Those were two things that I made a deal with myself, that I will never depend on others for those two things. And I am caught, I do it at home, where I'll just say, if I did something great, I go, oh my God, I'm a genius. And my whole family is laughing. And they understand. I'm not saying that I don't think that I'm a literal genius, but I will compliment myself when I do something great, and I tell my kids, why not? I tell them, you should do the same for yourself. You don't have to wait to receive this from outside. And I think that social media today is a play, it does the opposite of that, because everything that we put out, we're sitting and waiting to be recognized, right? We're sitting for the likes and the comments and this, and I'm thinking this is insanity, because we're giving away that power of self realization. We're giving away that power that we have to recognize the good things that we do and the bad, right? We can be fair, but the good, we're giving that away to other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a client and she really had a hard time accepting compliments. But if someone said something ugly to her, or said, you're stupid, and her parents were pretty, she was an adult, but her parents were pretty ugly to her. I mean, she was being told she was stupid as an adult. It was very sad. And I said, but so she was really good. If you said something bad, she heard it, she accepted it and took it as truth. And if you said something good to her, she bounced it off. She wouldn't let any of the good things in. And I said, okay, so what you're saying to the universe and the energy and everything out there is that if someone says something bad about you, you believe it. And if someone says something good about you, it's a lie. You automatically put it in the category of lie. Do you think you're going to get good things and the things you want? She was like, I didn't think about it that way, And, I'm so proud of you for modeling that for your kids. I actually did executive corporate training to learn how to talk well about myself, because it was so ingrained that was bragging, and it's like, but I think that example is like, well, it's just the truth. No one says I'm good at spreadsheets, because I'm not. I'm not a detail person, but I'm a good communicator, and both are true. It's not braggy. Yeah.
Exactly. This is what's important. But at the same time, we have to understand the weaknesses that we have. We can choose to either get better or accept this is not my forte, and I don't need to, this is not something that I need to get better at. And it's okay, because nobody is great at everything. So I'm not okay at that. And that's not a bad thing. It just is. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that. It is that, and that's it. I think that we need to work on ourselves to be kind to ourselves and kind to other people, but not to put ourselves second. And I think that especially caretakers, and in my group, And I don't know if Naomi is still here. Um, Marina may be, but Naomi is a caretaker, and we have a little another group called Caregiver Story, and in there, people feel very comfortable to share days that we have, like bad days, days that are very difficult as caretakers. And I'm not talking about caretakers just being moms. I mean, that's plenty, but I'm talking about wives of husbands that got sick. um, I mean, these women, they're heroes. I mean, I see what they do. Sarah, it is unbelievable. Look, my husband had 2 strokes, but thank God he walks, he talks, he can drive. He has his, he lost memory, he lost vision, but he's functioning. Uh, and I have a lot of friends that I made through the stroke support community that's not the case for their spouses. They're in wheelchairs, they can't communicate, very complicated issues. And it drains them completely because they're always taking it out and giving and giving and giving, and they don't have that opportunity for self-kindness and self-care, and just understand that they cannot give and give and give if there is nothing there to give from, because they're wasted.
So one of the kindest phrases in those circumstances, I have an aunt who has a special needs child who she's probably 25 now. Bailey's probably 25. And she basically, her brain never progressed past being like 1.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like mama, dada. And she kind of says the same things over and over again, or she'll make a sign language that she's going on the boat. And so, but I mean, it's just very, she's 25 and she can walk, but she can't run. It's very much like having a 25-year-old, 1-year-old.
1-year-old.
And when you think about that, it's so much easier to understand other people's situations, right? It's so much easier to have compassion for my aunt and uncle and just say, yeah, who would be good at that? Like, who would be good at round the clock care for a 1-year-old for 25 years? No one would be good at that, right? And my aunt's wonderful. My uncle's wonderful. Bailey's very sweet, but it's hard, right? And when you start to say, well, who would be good at putting up with bad behavior? Who would be good at having a husband who used to be your provider and now he's in a wheelchair and a victim of a stroke? Like, who would be good at an adult child never talking to you again? Who would be, whatever the situation is, when it's a very difficult situation, it's really helped me and helped my clients. Who is good at that? Who is good at care?
I think that gives permission to not be so perfect, right? We're in this journey and learning and trying and doing our best, figuring out as we go.
Nobody likes perfect. I am quite confident in my years here. What I've learned is, because I've done a lot of work with toxic people. Well, toxic people think they're perfect and they're always telling everyone else that they're perfect, right? They're among other things, but that's a good, an indicator. Okay. And so people don't like them. But they don't like them. I'm perfect. I have everything put together. You don't have anything put together. So when that voice in our heads screams, you have to be perfect, it can be helpful to think, who?
Nobody would want me if I was
right.
Nobody wants me to be perfect.
Right. Do we really like those people? Do we really want to be around those people? Do we? And usually the answers are pretty clear. Like, I don't even like those people who can't be honest, who can't say they need help, and I had somebody on my Toxic Person Proof podcast today, and she had stayed a year with a lady who was a devoted Catholic who literally spent her whole days praying. Okay. And had let this woman stay with her for free. So lovely person. I mean, this woman's very kind and giving, and she got sick. And so her house guest, who'd stayed with her for a year for free, tried to make her bone broth while she was ill. And the lady was so uncomfortable receiving that she said, no, I can't bother you. I don't need your bone broth when I'm sick. because she was just so uncomfortable with anything other than caregiving.
It's so interesting what you said about receiving. This was something, a lesson that I had to learn when my husband got sick, because I was full time taking care of his needs, and I needed help in the house. I needed help with shopping. I needed help to drive my kid to school. And suddenly I was in the receiving end when I used to be that person that was the giver. And it was very interesting understanding and learning that actually the receiving, you being a receiver, you are a giver, because you were giving somebody else the opportunity to give it to you. There has to always be, in the relationship between the giver and receiver, there is always somebody who's receiving and somebody who's giving. And when you become a receiver, what you're doing is you're giving somebody else the opportunity to give it to you. So you can understand that there's an equilibrium in that position.
So my first book is called Becoming Toxic Person Proof, and it's about healthy relationships, right? So I talk about toxic person encounters, and the boiled down easiest way I can define a healthy relationship is a relationship that takes turns, right? It's that give and take. I give sometimes, I receive sometimes. I give sometimes, I receive sometimes, right? And that's a healthy relationship, right? And, and so that's who we want to be. That's what we strive to be. We were taught to take turns at what, 2, 3 years old? And so then if we're 33, 43, 53, 63, and we still struggle, like it's either always my turn to give or always my turn to receive, neither are good.
That's right.
Neither are good.
And I think that if we understand that, we then understand that sometimes other people cannot give it to us. We need to give it to ourselves, because we need to fill up that position.
We're
right?
all stuck with us from birth to death. We're the one constant, right? We are always stuck with us.
It is. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for us to understand that when we talk not nice to ourselves, that we're damaging and breaking so much? I don't understand. How did that start? How it became okay?
There's some personality types that truly have like a voice in their head. Like if you study the Enneagram 1s and 8s, there's some very specific personality types and they have like the voice in their head. Other personality types don't have that voice in their head and they seek out that voice in other relationships. So they end up getting in controlling relationships because it's like, well, what do I do? How do I make a decision? If I don't have anybody beating me up, how am I supposed to know what to do or how to make a decision? Which is why I've gone from writing about toxic relationships to decision making, right? It's like, this is exactly what's happened. Because if you're not trying to calm or pacify the toxic voice, either in your head or in your life, how do you make a decision? How do you know the right thing to do? How do you move forward? But so certain personality types are born to that. And it's also very societal, I'll tell you this. So if I say I'm obsessed with my job, I couldn't live without it. If I didn't have my job, I'd just die. You'd say you're a workaholic. Okay. If I said I can't live without my boyfriend, if he ever left me, I would just die. You'd say I was codependent. Okay. You'd say I was unhealthy. What if I said I just can't live without my children? I do everything for them. Without them, I just die. People say, oh, what a good mother.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right? Do we see what's going wrong? Right? And or you may be in a caregiving position for elder parents, right? Oh, I just have to do this for my mom. I can't, I have to take care of her. I have to do this, right? And those I have to, I should, I must, my mom actually went to a therapist and he told her, he said, where is it written That voice that's beating you up and telling you things like, you shouldn't do this, you must do this, you have to follow this rule. Like, where is it written that you have to maybe, let's say it's a work situation. Someone's always giving their work in, turning their work in late. You know, is it in the HR manual that you're responsible, you personally are responsible for making sure everyone else doesn't have to be responsible? Is that your job to be responsible so no one else has to be? And it's like, well, no, you know, and you can tell I'm a real fan of all these little reframes, right? All these little switches. And it's like, well, what if we thought about it this way? What if we thought about it this way? What if we thought about it this way? And again, what do you want? Do you want happiness? Okay. You've been beating yourself up in your head. Is it working? If you can beat yourself up in your head and be happy, then don't change anything. If it's not working, try something else.
Yeah, I love that. I love that trick, and I really hope the people who are listening are going to remember and use it, because I think it's very societal. You know what you were saying before. I think that we're at a time that everybody's judging everybody. The whole judging, you know, analyzing, having a say became a big thing. You know, I'm much older than you, and I still think about, oh my God, life was so, it was so simple then, you know, without social media, without needing people's approval for everything, without having to photograph everything throughout your day. Um, I have a fashion company, so I use Instagram to post. I do a terrible job at it because I don't really consume um, social media. I just come, I do my once a day. Maybe I look a little bit at the people that responded to me, they contacted me. But when I do those little bit of checking here and there or support some people, I try to support people, and once a day I go in and I like other people's things. I see so much judgment. I see people coming up and talking and doing short videos about somebody else that came and said this and that and the other. And I'm like, I don't live this. And I think that I have this freedom because in my time there wasn't. And I just made a choice to not become part of this trend, this living out loud, you know, this living openly for everybody to see, taking less responsibility for my own life and being busy, being responsible for other people's lives. I don't understand that concept, but I think that this life became almost like an okay. Well, if everybody's judging everybody, for sure I need to judge me because I cannot come in front of the world and represent myself in this stupid way, ugly way, bad way, you know, whatever. We have one life to live. We don't need a million people watching in. We just need to try to do better, to become better, but more than anything, be kind and loving and accepting and forgiving, because without that compassion towards ourselves, how can we heal from the wounds? Because without living in the open, we're already hurt enough. Things happen, we face challenges, you know, we're trying to, whatever, if it's at work, if it's at home, if it's with health, with all elderly parents, we go through so much. So if we cannot be kind to ourselves, how can we have the strength to do anything to fix and to grow and to put things in order in our life? We are called to make decisions, right? All day long. You said that we made 200 and something food decisions. I think it's in the thousands.
35,000 decisions a day.
Yes. So we live a life that we need to make so many decisions that only action is going to move us forward. We can't make more decisions, especially when we beat ourselves down. You know, we're all day long, you know, I think that so many of us has a relative or a friend who's very critical. right? We have
I do. I'm raising both hands. Yes.
we have those people in our families that always will remind us of something not good, not the right choice that we made. We hate it, right? We hate it. We don't find it constructive. We don't find, even though we know that many times these people love us to pieces. We don't understand that love, right? We want that unconditional love. You know, we have seen, we have experienced from our parents, or us as adults, we die wanting to be validated and loved by our parents. But how can we even demand any of that when we're being mean to ourselves, when we're not being kind, when we're not seeking help, when we're not going to a coach or a therapist or taking a course or a class because we don't find that we have the time to improve our lives?
I've done a lot of dating coaching in my time, and I'm always fascinated by people who have no interest in committing to themselves, but then want either a boyfriend or girlfriend or a boss or company to commit to them. And it's like, okay, you're not even committed to you. If you can't commit to yourself first and invest in yourself in a coach or a therapist or a course or looking at your own self in the mirror, like, do you think someone else is going to commit to you?
Exactly.
Right? It's just not logical.
Exactly. So we're about to hit the hour. Obviously, if anybody has any questions for Sarah, I'm also going to put all of Sarah's information inside the group. Sarah, please send me all the information, your website and your email, and I'll put it in the group. But I just hope, my wish and my hope for everybody who's here and anybody who's going to listen to this on replay is to really stop and think about, are they being kind to themselves? Are they spending the time that they need to recover? We go to the gym, we do weight training, and we know the next day we have to rest those muscles. Are we giving the rest that we need to recover from the stresses that we had to face that specific day? Are we giving ourselves the kind words, the encouragement, the positive encouragement? Are we getting from ourselves the recognition for the wonderful things that we have already accomplished? With my coaching clients, every so often we do a review of everything that we have done together in the time that I'm coaching them, because I'm a very action-based coach. There's a lot of homework, there's a lot of things that need to be accomplished, but through that action we can measure how much progress we made. And every few months we see and we praise ourselves, obviously the client, for doing this hard work and improving. And I hope that anybody who's going to be here is going to understand that, yes, go and get a manicure, go and get a massage, go and get your vacation, give yourself the time to rest your body and your mind and your soul, but also watch your speech, how you talk and how you think about yourself, how you show your relatives, your children, and how you talk to yourself. I mean, be kind to yourself first so you can have what to give to others. Sarah, I can't thank you enough. You're an inspiration. I think that you said some words and how to reframe. I'm going to watch this show again because there's certain things that you said. Sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful things. And they're simple when you hear it, but they're not so easy.
That's exactly like water. We know we're supposed to drink more water, but sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to drink water today, and it's just so simple, but it can be hard. Yes.
But it can be so hard. So I think that you said some very valuable, simple and hard things. I think that is it working? Is it working? If it's not working, change. I think that that's so important, because how often we're trying the same things again and again and again. And if it's not working, then maybe change. Powerful. I am so, so thankful to you. And I'm so happy that now you're part of my circle.
I'm so happy to. And I will drop my newest book, Problem Solved: Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. There's like a friends and family discount. I'm doing it for 99 cents in the month of August. So
Amazing.
as soon as I get that link from Amazon, you can pop it in your group and
Yes.
this. And it's like, if it's not working, try something else expanded into a book. I mean, that whole idea of like, how do we become master problem solvers? If we're making 35,000 decisions a day, how do we make that easy on ourselves? How do we get the tailwind behind us rather than feeling like we're always flying into the headwind, and just make life a little better?
Amazing. So yes, I'm definitely going to share. And I actually put my book for 99 cents during those session too. So for
Oh,
$2, they can get 2 amazing books.
awesome. Yes.
Healing. Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And until next week with another show, I will share the information inside the group. So if anybody's listening and you're not inside the Heal with Gold, join us and you will know ahead of time who's going to be the next speaker. Have a good one. Good night.